Welcome to Shoot Support, where Marc Silber takes questions from the AYP community about their photos and photography in general.
So our first question is from Carlos. Nowadays, I'm spending some time looking out the window like everybody else. I've
Yep.
noticed that there's a lot of people regularly dealing drugs in the streets. What is your take on ethics? What should be the limits as witnesses, given that we have the means to identify people and their actions?
Wow, that's a big one to start off with. So, Carlos, thanks for sending that in with your example. Okay, first of all, I have a couple of answers for this. First of all, dealing drugs is illegal and it's harmful for our society. If you capture it and you record it, and they're right out in the open, I mean, nobody's trying to hide here. Also, it's interesting because they actually are pretty anonymous in your photograph. This person with a bit of a side view is the only one you can really tell who this is. This guy in the blue and the other guy, you really can't tell who they are. You're not revealing much. Now, it's really up to you what you do with these photographs. I mean, I don't think you're asking, can I send them to the police so these guys get busted? But as far as your ethics, they're right out in the open, it's my interpretation. And of course, you have to look at the laws of every country are a little different. But if people are displaying things and doing things on a public street, again, don't take my word for it. You do your own research. But my knowledge of that is they're out in the open on a public street. They are doing something in public. That means it's for public view. It's up to you to determine that for sure. As far as your ethics on it, that is something you have to answer for yourself. What are you going to do? I mean, I would, if this were in my neighborhood, I would do everything I could to stop it, not necessarily by turning these photographs over to the police, but in whatever way you could influence these people to stop doing this would be a good thing. And you could probably think of several ways as a photographer. This is one of the things we do, by the way, guys, as photographers. We do change the social awareness and consciousness, and this happens in many different ways. And we'll probably later in the show even look at some. But you've heard, like from Ed Kashi, for instance, raising the social awareness is really the first step in something that we do as photographers, because we capture things around us and we show them to other people who wouldn't necessarily be aware of them. Okay, I hope that helps. Research your own laws in your area. You have to come to terms with what you want to do with it in terms of your own ethics. Sorry to leave that open-ended, but it really is your decision. There's sometimes you guys are going to ask me questions I don't have a definitive answer for. And I'll tell you, many times I will, so I'll tell you either way, okay? All right, what's the next one?
All right, our next one's from Leon. Hey guys, I've got a general photography question. I have, and I'll just kind of sum it up, but it's
Yeah, sum it
asking
up.
about, because the specifics don't particularly matter for the answer that we're going to give, but it
Right.
was asking about the benefit of replacing cameras, lenses, and here's a part of it that I think goes to it. I mean, will I see a difference that will justify the extra money?
There you go. That is the question. Will spending more money on gear make you a better photographer? Okay, I think many of you already know the answer to this that I'm going to say. And here's the deal. You have to put gear into perspective. There are 5 stages of photography that I wrote about in this book. This is a good book, by the way. There's 5 stages to photography. You learn to visualize it. You get inspired and you visualize. You have to know your equipment. That's not just a camera, but that's lenses, lighting, all the equipment that you use. And then you learn to capture, which is basically lighting and composition. Then you edit your photographs, then you get it out to the world. So let's put it in perspective. To be creative as a photographer, you have to be in control of all 5 of these. Now, if we focus only on one of them over and over and over again, that's like driving a car and only staying in first gear. Is that going to be a satisfying drive? I mean, if you ever have driven a manual shift, you're going to get really worn out after a while because you need to shift gears. So gear does have an importance. There's no question. You do need to have the right gear. But from what you described here, you've got an adequate camera. I'm going to actually borrow from another answer. So there's a photographer who's actually pretty well known. His name is Mohammed Farhan. I think he goes by Farn. And he was asked on an interview, what would you do if you had $5,000 to spend on your photography? Now he's in, where is he in, Jared?
I think it was the Philippines.
The Philippines. So basically, the Philippine dollar is 75 cents to the American dollar. So $5,000 basically translates to, in America, $3,750. So he said basically you should spend $750 on a basic good camera, and he actually made some recommendations, and spend the rest of it, which would be $3,000, on education. He said, the art school, okay, blah, blah, blah. Use the money so that you use the money for education so that you can make full use of what you spent your money on your camera for. And boy, does that speak to me, because you could go out with virtually any camera and I could prove it to you. And one of these days, we're going to do this other show, which is called You Send It, We Shoot It. You guys send me any old whatever, as long as it's digital. I don't want to go out and have to process the film, but send me any old broken down, as long as it still works, digital camera, and I will prove to you that we can make great photographs. That's another show, though. But here's the deal. Education is what's going to make you a better photographer. There's no question about it. And that's why I do what I do. That's what I live for. And specifically, the kind of education that you want is following a path, not just random, take this photograph, here's this cool thing, da 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 da, but actually following a course of action such as I developed, the cycle of photography, which is a logical way of understanding creativity and photography. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Hang on to your equipment, invest in photography education. And I do happen to know some really good classes that you can check out.
We hope that you enjoyed that video. If you did, please give it a like and leave a comment. We love to hear from you. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you can know when all of our future videos come out. And finally, be sure to get out there and capture your own images of life.